The last thing you want to hear when you need your auto insurance most is a robot with countless irrelevant menu options. Which is why with USAA Auto Insurance, you'll get great service that is easy and reliable, all at the touch of a button. Get a quote today. Restrictions apply.
ChatGPT Plus is free for college students through May. Here's the thing. You've got a lot to do between now and then. Studying for finals, writing papers, trying to keep your life on track, and ChatGPT can help with all of it. It can quiz you for your econ exam, make a study guide from your French notes, plan out your meals and study breaks. It can get really specific on how you like to learn. It can even help you come up with ways to stop procrastinating. So from now until summer break, take advantage of all the ways ChatGPT can make your life easier. Restrictions apply.
Hello, I'm Pip, and welcome to the Midwife Pip podcast, the home of expert information and real chats on all things pregnancy, birth, and beyond. Now, this week, I am hopping on solo. I have just finished two things that have triggered me to have to come on and share some real information that I think that you new and expectant mums out there need at your fingertips in today's world. First of all, I had a conversation this morning with a mum who previously tried to navigate postnatal recovery herself and sadly ended up with a lifelong pelvic health injury. And then I've literally just finished my own postnatal rehab session, and it kind of just brought to mind how we just have to get the message out there and break through the noise somehow around the realistic expectations of the postnatal body and postpartum recovery, because it's a jungle out there. It is wild. The amount of bounce back noise and returning to high impact or lifting significant weight, quite often incorrectly, so soon after having a baby, it's almost been glamorized. And I often find myself saying to new mums, your head might feel ready. I know for so many of us, and myself completely included, it's such a mental break. It's all about our mental wellness as well as our physical. And I get that. I totally resonate. But the challenge is we completely end up disrespecting the journey our body's been on. And yes, our legs might be ready, and yes, our head might be ready, but our vagina is not. It's always going to be the last thing to feel ready. And that's where we need to get some information. We need to get some support, and we need to actually understand what's going on in our body. And it's not about lying in bed for 6 weeks. Far from it. It's about knowing how to use those precious pockets of time that you might have with a new baby effectively to actually make sure you're supporting your postnatal recovery. These early weeks, these early months can quite literally transform your health as a woman forever. They're protective for the years and years that follow, the premenopause years, everything that comes later. We have to get this time right. And I think society has done such a disservice, to be honest, to postnatal women by putting this pressure on, by glamorizing this kind of bounce back and early return. And so I wanted to share what this should actually look like and why this idea of at 6 weeks we should kind of be back to our old self. And by the way, who wants to go back to their old self when they've had a baby? Postnatal can be our powerhouse opportunity. We can absolutely be our strongest, most capable version yet, but only if we have that support and that education and that nurture to be able to achieve that. So 6 weeks is an absolute myth. And anyone that's heard me speak or coach anybody postpartum will know that I'm not a fan of that 6 week mark. There is so much that we can proactively do in that initial 6 weeks that sets such strong, solid foundations for recovery. But it's not a case of at 6 weeks, let's start running and jumping. In fact, postnatal recovery is more like an 18-month time frame in a pretty uncomplicated pregnancy and birth journey. So this can absolutely look longer. Kind of 6 to 8 months is when, in reality, we just start gaining some kind of basic pelvic floor strength that looks somewhat more like it was prior to pregnancy. 6 to 12 months is our abdominal wall, and then hormones. They are massively influential on everything postpartum, and that's more like 12 to 18 months. I think we can really underestimate the impact that hormones have on postpartum. It really is a roller coaster. The night sweats, the sleep deprivation, the vaginal bleeding, it is massive. We forget that transition into motherhood is a time of physical, psychological, social, emotional, spiritual change. Everything's changed. My brand new book, Midwife Pip's Guide to a Positive Birth, is now available. So much more than a book, this is a guide that allows me to hold your hand through your birth preparation journey. With over a decade of experience and knowledge packed in to ensure you really are empowered in the way you deserve to achieve a positive birth, regardless of the twists and turns that crop up. Make sure that you get your hands on Midwife Pip's Guide to a Positive Birth book now and are empowered to have the birth experience that you deserve. Those of you that haven't heard of the term matrescence, I really recommend that you start to learn about it and start to look at it, because matrescence is essentially our motherhood version of the teenage years. The teenage years, that adolescence, that transition from child to adult that we know is turbulent. We think of teenagers and we think hormones up and down, unpredictable. Matrescence is our motherhood version of that. It's meant to be rocky. It's not going to be linear. We have that hormonal roller coaster. And what we need to be able to do is to actually understand our minds and bodies in this time and be nurtured and supported to optimize it and not load on this pressure. Or worse, actually cause ourselves longer term injuries. So I really recommend thinking about this postnatal time frame as so much more than 6 weeks. We know that it's going to take sort of 3 to 6 months to move out of those trenches of postpartum. And we'll start to notice physical changes at this point as well quite often. Quite often mums will notice some loose skin at this stage, or some stretch marks, brain fog, and even postnatal hair loss. So it really does encompass our whole self, our whole sense of self and confidence. And we're kind of moving through finding this new version of ourselves in motherhood. And I think this idea out there that postpartum is weak and vulnerable, we really need to stand up and challenge. What women's bodies go through to grow and bring new life into the world should never be considered in parallel to words like weakness or less capable. It's truly phenomenal what your body's done. And actually, what we really deserve in the postnatal period is that expert level of support and guidance. And we certainly deserve to not be put in a position where we can potentially cause long-term physical or psychological injury. These weeks, these months in that initial period are so precious. Our little people grow up so fast, and we want to be able to be present and enjoying those times, and not just in this big old spiral of anxiety and stress and pressure and uncertainty. Let's face it. How much postnatal or newborn information are you searching on Google? Ask yourself that question, and then consider whether at this important time in your life, Google feels like enough of a decent resource to guide you and your baby. We get one shot at getting this time right. It is so important that we do that in a way that is long-term protective of us and our babies too. And the good news is those hormones do level out eventually. Of course, the time frame is individual, but we are looking at kind of 12 to 18 months. At this stage, our connective tissues are healing, our core and pelvic floor with the right rehab is optimizing. And at this stage, we really can feel like our new, better self, our strongest version of ourselves yet. We really don't have to accept postnatal being this weakened time in our lives. It really can be this yes, rocky road, these challenges, but the way that we overcome those challenges and move through the other side is honestly so highly influential of everything to come. And I quite often get asked about my own postnatal recovery and my own postnatal experience. Those of you that have been listening for a while know that I have two little people, two children. And it's actually looked different with both boys. And that's not necessarily because of my physical health or my emotional health. It's because of the realities of what I was juggling at the time of having my first child and my second child. And I think that's really important message for those of you that do have subsequent babies, because often it's really common that we compare where we're at, what's going on, what we've got back to, what we've achieved after a second birth or second child compared to that after our first. And what we completely forget, especially if you had a short age gap, was that your body was still postpartum when it then layered on another pregnancy and another birth. Not to mention, you're probably sleeping less. Psychologically, you've probably got a lot more going on because you're juggling all those needs of your other child. The demands are so different. So we need to stop this kind of comparison to old versions of ourselves or old experiences and recognize that every postnatal period is a new opportunity for growth, but it's going to look different, and that's okay. And that's where it is so true that there is simply no one size fits all postpartum. There are so many variations and variety and differentials, and no one's journey is linear, and everyone's journey has different bumps in the road. And that's why it's not possible to just lump everyone do this. This is everyone's time scale, and this is what everyone's outcomes going to look like, because we are just setting ourselves up to fail. We deserve to be nurtured as mums. We deserve to have that support postpartum. It is not selfish. Feeling mum guilt for looking after yourself is an expectation that society has put on us. And the exciting thing for our generation of mothers is we get to write our own job description of motherhood. We get to set the bar, set our standards where we want them to be. We don't have to let that bar be dictated by anybody else. We have the power to set that bar, to write our own job description, and to then measure ourselves against our own standards. And notice, when you create your own bar, your own standards, your own description of motherhood for you, silencing all the nuance and everyone else's opinions, how much you can push down those feelings of selfishness or guilt, because we cannot care for others if we don't look after ourselves. At the end of the day, our children need us to be physically and psychologically well and strong to meet their needs. So if you don't feel like you can do it for yourselves, know that you're doing it for them. Our little people's brains are sponges. They are quite literally absorbing everything they see around them. And one of the most powerful things we can do as parents is to normalize self-care, to normalize exercise as part of everyday life. There are so many studies that show that children that grow up with activity being normal, that movement and exercise as a normal part of everyday living, go on to be much healthier, much more active adults. It's a lot harder to create a pattern shift and a behavioral change in adulthood and start becoming active. Those that are active from a young age and have that role modeled are setting foundations that can change that trajectory for our children. We live in an absolute, sea of obesity and chronic health conditions. And one of our jobs as parents is to support our children to have fulfilling, healthy lives free from disease. And that starts with us. The truth is, we need to have that within us. We need to be able to respect ourselves enough to demonstrate that to our children. So if you can't do it for you, you're doing it for them. And that is something that we deserve to give the next generation in our lives. So allow yourself, please, if you take one thing from my chat, is allow yourself to not be someone that reaches out to me in 6 months' time with a long-term pelvic health injury. Allow yourself to be someone who is educated and supported and can respect their body through this postnatal recovery. And if you're thinking, yes, Pip, that sounds great, but what does that look like? Where do I get support? Yes, I am going through Google because I don't know what else to do. Please do just drop me a DM on Instagram, midwife_Pip. Drop me a DM. Tell me you've listened to this podcast, what you're looking to achieve, or even just that you're lost and don't know what you're looking to achieve. And let's just have a chat. Let's see what it is that you need at this time and how things can work out for you better. I hope that you enjoyed listening to this episode. And if you are a new mum, remember, make plans for the postpartum. It is equally as important as birth, and we are all in it together. If you have listened to this birth story, enjoyed it, and feel that you are ready to really embrace and dedicate yourself to having the most informed, supported, and empowered journey, and want to see if we may be able to support you in YPJ, your pregnancy and postnatal journey, please drop me a Instagram DM at midwife_Pip or get in touch on my email, pip@midwifepip.com, and let's chat through things and see if we might be a good match for each other. I hope you've enjoyed listening and wishing you all the best on your journey through pregnancy, birth, and beyond.